So one of the things we're really striving on and improving on is we're not focusing on the personal when something happens. We're focusing on the system aspects. It's not who failed, but what failed, and really driving our improvements based on being a better learning organization. And Tesla's quick at that. We really are just getting more and more into strengthening our learning when incidents do happen.
That's a nice way to start a podcast, don't you think? Kind of a nice little bump into the podcast. That is Laurie Shelby from Tesla. And Tesla's been in the news a lot, and Laurie and I had a little chat, and that's what's coming up on today's podcast. Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Conklin. This is Pre-Accident Podcast. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. If you're new to the pod, I'm so glad you're here. I mean, you're more than welcome. It's a little community of people that get together and talk about sort of this new view on safety differently. If you're an old hand at the pod, been listening a while, I think you're going to enjoy this podcast. It's got a lot going for it. It is a gorgeous but windy time of the year for us. I don't know what it's like for you guys. If you're on the East Coast, the weather's just, I don't know I can think of nice ways to say it, but sucky is the word that comes to mind. The West Coast, well, you've even been cold when I've been there. And in the middle of the country where I live, the flyover area, I believe it's affectionately called, it's just been windier than crap. I mean, like nutty windy. But that's the way spring is in many places. And I think I tend to forget about wind until it happens, but it's not the end of the world. It makes flying interesting. I mean, it makes flying kind of exciting. Lots of bumping. And speaking of exciting flying, that's been going on as well. So the podcast today is going to focus on kind of an approach at looking at what succeeds. So if you followed the news much in the last month, maybe month and a half, there's been quite a push to look at one organization for lots and lots of really contextually rich reasons, and to look and focus almost entirely on lagging indicators, days away and reportable time numbers. And we all know, because we talk about this a lot, that those really tell the story of what happened. They don't tell the story of what's going to happen, what's happening. And so I had the opportunity to sit down with Laurie Shelby and talk to her a little bit about not really what's happened in Tesla, although that story is super interesting, but really to kind of push towards what's happening in Tesla, what's changed in the period of time she's been at the helm of the safety program of probably one of the more interesting startups in the world. Certainly a startup that's got lots of attention. Elon Musk brings a certain amount of panache to this story because of the notion of being very agile, moving very quickly, depending on data, counting on information, and then responding. Kind of a scrappy organization, an organization that can do things quickly and do things in a prototypical way. They can micro experiment things in order to create a system that is efficient really in 3 dimensions: forward, backwards, up and down. Is that 4? That might be 4 dimensions. You know what I mean? You smart people know exactly what I mean. That makes them attractive. It also probably makes them, to a great extent, a target. And that's been kind of the interesting part of this whole journey. So that's what we talked about. I mean, it's always fun to talk to somebody in a startup. It's really fun to talk to somebody in a startup that's moving as quickly as possible. Because if you've forgotten, all the things that your organization has that you rely on foundationally as kind of the safety foundation upon which your programs are built, a startup is going to have to build all of those things kind of from scratch. And that's an interesting part of this story as well. So I can talk a long time. I mean, I got plenty of stuff to say, but it might be more interesting to actually listen to the podcast. So here it comes. If you get a chance, subscribe, tell your friends. Everybody's welcome. That's always great. And it's always fun to talk to you. But first, let's talk to Laurie Shelby. And she would see, I can't even say, I'm so excited I can't talk. See what she has to say, there it is, about the journey that Tesla is on from today moving forward.
Well, hi, Todd. This is Laurie Shelby. I am the EH&S Vice President at Tesla, and happy to talk with you today. I want to talk about some of the great things we're doing here at Tesla.
Well, it's completely a pleasure to always talk to you, Laurie. Always, 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 always. And you guys have it's really great to get an opportunity to do a little chat with you because you've been in the news recently, especially on the
We
safety.
have?
Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, but on the safety side of the house, and the news seems to focus kind of entirely on what's wrong. But I'm actually much more curious about what's going right at Tesla. So let's approach this conversation by talking about what's happening at Tesla and what are you doing to sort of move Tesla to the next level of safety?
Yeah, well, it's actually a pleasure to talk about that. So thanks for asking. So we are at Tesla, we're over 160 strong EHS professionals globally. So we have a really solid staff. We're almost 40,000 employees globally as well. So it's a growing company. One of the, I've been here, actually it's 6 months yesterday. I've been here at Tesla. And one of the key things we're focusing on, and what really was wonderful the day I walked in, is Tesla works on something called the first principle thinking. And it's really, getting to the simplest answer. And when you talk to Elon, his definition of safety really starts with focusing on controls and finding solutions. So day one, when I walked in, what was already great is having that first principle thinking already moving. So we're not walking into a staunchy, leadership team and ops team that was focusing in on lagging indicators. So that's one of the first things. What's going right is, our safety strategy, I'll just talk safety, we can also put in health there. It's about doing the basics right. We are focusing on making sure we engage with our associates, our operators, and then reducing risk by focusing on controls and a fail-safe mentality.
So let's recap those because I don't want to miss that. So it's focusing on what's right, engaging your workers, and managing the ability to fail safely. Did I hit those?
Correct.
Okay, so
yep.
those are kind of your core. Those
did.
are the core principles. Now, did you bring those in when you came, or are you building on sort of the principles that were there, or did you add to that or subtract from that? What'd you do differently when you came in? Oh, and happy 6-month birthday.
I know. Thank you. A lot of it was already in place, but, I'm developing it and growing it based on, a lot of work that we've done together, Todd, and understanding, how to, people are going to make mistakes. We've got to design safety into the system. For example, what was already in place is the Model 3, the safety team here, the ergonomics team and the safety team actually designed safety into the Model 3. So when we're building the Model 3, the reach and the ergonomics of building the car was actually built into it. So that was already moving and fantastic. And that's paying lots of rewards right now as we build the Model 3. So I'd have to say it's a little bit of both. I'm certainly bringing my expertise and years and years and years of experience to this startup company. I mean, that's what's the energy here at Tesla is always going strong, and that energy always helps when it comes to safety. The associates, so our team on the floor building the cars or putting the roofs on, are very engaged in the safety program. Actually, just at the end of this year, we did like a survey, and it was anonymous, so people could, they didn't have to say who they were, but you could actually tell where they were in the organization. Like 84% of our associates said that Tesla cared about their health and safety and well-being. So that's probably the most important metric I could ever have, and want to, continue to see that move up.
How are you keeping that
So
engagement? How do you keep them engaged like that, or how do you start that engagement, and how are you keeping that engagement?
you have small group sessions. You have active safety committees. We have a really cool find it, fix it that I did bring in when I came over from my other place, and that engages employees. They will find things, they'll fix them. If they can't fix them, they can work with the EHS department. They can work with their supervisor. But one of the coolest things that I've never had at a job is they actually have a design group. So if an employee has an idea, they send it to the design group and they prototype it. And I've seen things prototyped within hours. They go back on the line from an employee suggestion to be fixed. I think one of the coolest ones I saw about a month ago was really just somebody putting a chain up behind a Roku chair that allows you to move in and out of the car, so it reduces ergonomics, just so nobody could walk behind it. So the person couldn't, get hit by this chair as it's moving. But so many simple, great things. And that's going good. So the engagement of our workers, which, that's the most important thing.
Are you getting
really,
a chance? Are you getting a chance to tell those little success stories that add up to big success stories that add up to confidence for the whole plant, for the globe?
We tell them internally. I don't get the chance externally to tell those stories, but we do have we're building our communication process, so we get to share those across the plant. I don't think you could ever communicate enough. We're right here. I'm actually in sunny Fremont, California, which is just right outside of San Francisco. This morning I was out at a flow down meeting, which is like a toolbox start a shift meeting, and the discussions were about, hey, what went right? What lessons did we learn from yesterday? It was, energizing to see a lot of these practices already in play.
That's super important, because the tendency to sort of bog down in the lagging indicators, and that's what, you're really seeing that, like in the press, is that the lagging indicators really tell the story of what used to happen, and they don't really tell the story of what's happening. And that's an important story for us to tell.
Yeah, it's a very, very important story. We're also kicking off something we call it LIFE, and it stands for Life Altering Injury and Fatality Elimination. And it's very similar to what, the safety professionals call FSI, fatal and serious injury, or SIF. We're calling it LIFE here. And we're digging into the data, so we're focusing our efforts on, what are the most important areas for us to make sure we have, working teams out on the floor looking for ways to improve, like for mobile equipment, having the operators help us. Where do we need to focus improvements on? Where do we need more controls? Where do we need more, more eyes on task? And so that's super cool. The LIFE program is something I'm really excited about. The other thing we're doing that's right is we're just kicking off. We're getting a new medical clinic, and this clinic, it's sourced from an outside vendor who is the best at ergonomics and helping mitigate any type of injuries when they do occur. So getting the right practitioners on site. But even better, we just contracted with a company called WorkRight, who's the early symptom intervention. So they're the industrial athlete, and they're going to be working like on the line with our ergonomists right next to our associates, recognizing when there's pain and discomfort and addressing it right away. And it doesn't matter if it's pain or discomfort because somebody played, softball or soccer. We're going to address it because, we care. And that's what Tesla's all about. So those are some great things we're building currently.
What's your strategic path ahead? I can't even say it. What is your strategic? I can't talk. What is the strategic vision you have moving forward?
Really, the strategy from continuing to focus on risk reduction, but looking at the risk based on the incidents that have occurred. So not I would say driving our control process from a strategy standpoint, getting that risk reduction of those controls in place, and then having those controls be what we focus on making sure is always working, and driving our leadership focus on those controls. So the risk reduction piece is huge from a strategy standpoint, and using our life program to focus us in on where those areas are. The other piece is just continuing engagement of our associates, and driving teams that can make the change and can help us improve along the way. It's all about improvement from a standpoint of a long-term strategy.
I mean, I think that's exactly the thinking I think we all need, is that it doesn't really, the snapshot metrics aren't really very valuable. The much better metric is, are we getting better? Are we vectoring always towards improvement? Because we'll have times of great speed and times of slowness, and all that kind of doesn't matter as long as we're moving forward step by step. That kind of leads me, your life program, are you going to couple your life program to hazard identification or to controls?
We were coupling it. We were using the data as the identification piece, and we were going to really focus it more on controls. But I'm open to ideas there. You got to have both almost. You got to identify it.
I think it has to be kind of balanced almost. It seems like you have to do both sides of it pretty well.
Yeah, because if you get unbalanced, you definitely will be focused too much maybe on the non-critical pieces. I mean, you can't let that drop off. You've always got to have that balance with compliance and controls. But the controls is what's going to keep you safe. The compliance piece is really what keeps your strategy moving. It's just the thing you've got to do. So there's really no way around it. But the control piece is what's going to keep those life events from not occurring, from those actual life events.
So what's it like?
So
what's it like working in a company, in a culture that's as innovative and as startup-y as one of Elon Musk's companies, Tesla? I mean, how's that? That must be great.
Oh, it's so energizing. You definitely have to have a lot of energy to work here. Everything is in like hyperloop mode or hyperspeed. So you've got to be able to respond to the needs of production and engineering, faster than I've ever had to in my past positions. The innovation piece, I mean, it's the innovation and the collaboration is just super cool. I think that's what makes Tesla so amazing, is we have that collaboration and the innovation kind of working together. So what it does for safety professionals, or at least for me personally, is you got to think of things differently. Like at my last company, we wanted to make a change. You sit around, you talk through the change. There's a checklist everybody has to fill out and sign off on. At Tesla, it's like an EHS call in. We need you here now. We got to talk about this. We're going to do some pilots. We're going to do those micro experiments. They do a lot more, micro experimenting. Is this going to work? Is this not going to work? And that is super cool, because you try things that work, you try things that don't. But, it's very fast paced.
Has it caused you guys as safety pros to respond differently than the traditional approach?
Yes.
What's that look like? What's that look like?
I'm just thinking about when we walk through and we're talking with engineers, and you're looking about a new way to address an issue. You have to think. You really have to think faster on your feet. You have to look at what is the, it keeps going back to the control, because that's what really drives everything I do when I'm walking through the facilities. You look at, okay, this will keep us safe, but this will keep us from having something that'll shut down. So you have to think about kind of two phases. I mean, you just have to make decisions really more in the moment than in my past positions. So you have to really engage more with operations and engineering, like standing right there in the field, looking at a change that wants to be made, and then testing and verifying it right in the field in the moment.
And that seems
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes tons of sense, because it goes back to the idea of first principles. If you have to make quick prototypical decisions, you're going to make quick prototype decisions immediately, then really your standard is, does it meet our first principles? Is it the right thing to do? Is it engaging the workers? Is it causing us to improve? Is it moving us forward? That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes even better sense. Exactly.
So what message?
And one of the
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to tell you one thing we're doing, which I'm kind of what metrics are we watching? Because, as you mentioned, the lagging indicators are exactly what they are. They're lagging. They're in the past. Is we're actually we're collecting all of our, we call them defenses or controls, and the leadership walks, the find it, fix it's, the numbers. We're collecting those into a metric, multiplying it by 200,000 and dividing by hours worked. And what we're going to be sharing, what we are sharing, is you see those numbers going up and up and up. I mean, you want it to go to infinity, all the way to Mars, those numbers going up, while, the injury piece is going down. And it's a really cool thing to grasp, because it really shows the correlation of engagement more than anything.
That's interesting too, and you're quantifying it for a whole factory full of engineers. That makes sense.
Yeah, we're trying. Well, we got to have numbers,
That's how engineers
that's the
are.
other big thing, yeah.
They got to measure everything.
You got to have data. So.
But data's kind of data's the fuel, and collaboration is really the event. Collaboration is the energy, right? That's what Chris Hart. In fact, the podcast right before yours, that's what Chris Hart talked about, and that's right on target.
Oh, really?
Here's the ultimate question. What message would you want the world to know about Tesla that you're not being asked to talk about?
That safety is part of our DNA. And we care about every single person who walks through our door. It's Tesla seems to be portrayed as a non-caring, we don't want to make sure our people are treated right, are part of the solution, and are taken care of when something happens. And that's not who we are. That's not who I am. And as a leader, I would never be a place that would actually treat people that way. So we are fair, we are fun, we are fast, and it's part of our driven culture. So what people need to know is Tesla cares, and we do the right thing. We are, focused on getting a product out the door, which is crazy right now with the Model 3, but nothing's more important than our associates who are building it.
They're fast, fun, and fantastic. I believe that's sort of a paraphrase of what Laurie said. But I think her last comment is nothing more important than the people who are building it. You really feel that when you interface with Tesla. But there is an energy there that's not present in other places, at least places I go to, and certainly no place I've ever been a part of. They move fast, and they're really scrappy. And with that, I think they've had to learn, or maybe a better way to say this is they're learning how to do that in a process that's safe, stable, that actually creates the outcome they want at every level, from the engineering side to the production manufacturing side to the safety, environmental health side. All those things play together. I've never seen a place that's more interested in soft tissue, in muscle stuff, and their use of robotics to really remove or make it easier to do the job safely and effectively, and actually quite hard to do the job wrong. That's a pretty interesting part of how this looks. I actually think we ought to maybe have another conversation. And I asked Laurie, what else are we missing? What haven't we talked about? And we covered this is a pretty good introduction. This is kind of an overview of what's going on in that company. It's getting so much attention that it's kind of worth it to talk to the person who's sitting kind of on our side of the house in the driver's seat and really dealing with a big, complex, scrappy, fast-moving, pretty brand new organization that's making products that haven't been made before and making them in such a way that they want to really increase production while simultaneously increasing stability at every level. And I liked your idea of tying back into first principles. That's a really good way. Is it the right thing to do? Does it reduce risk? Does it engage the workers? And then their pressure from the very beginning of this podcast to become better and better and better at learning is a huge part of what happens. And that really is pretty much the journey we're all on together. We're just at different places. And some of us have maybe advantages over other places because we have some maturity and some time. And a lot of those early decisions and early hazards and early problems have been identified and mitigated or removed or engineered out of the system or controlled. And that is really important to the way we think of it. What do you think? Not a bad way to spend your commute to work or your time in the shower or your walking on Sunday or whatever it is you do when you listen to when I'm in your ear. I know that this is a fun one, and I know this is the kind of topic I really I enjoy. I enjoy it immensely. But mostly, I like spending time with you. That's what's most important. It looks like the Denver meeting has filled up, unfortunately, but I think we're working with maybe moving one to Nashville and seeing if we can do that. I'm really shocked at how many of you guys want to come and spend time with us. That's so nice of you, and it makes me happy. And happy is what it's all about. We all want to be happy. That's the goal. I guess that's it. I could talk more, but I don't know what else I'd talk about. So there we have it, man. That is the podcast for today. Stick around, tell your friends, bring in more people, subscribe, write a review, do all that stuff that I ask you to do every single week. Until then, though, have as much fun as you possibly can. Learn something new every single day. And for goodness sakes, be safe.
Good goes around and around and around. Good goes around and around.